You're actually the first person that hasn't cried on the show.
Well, we still got time. We should start the segment with me just crying. Like, what happened?
Ever since I can remember, I've been drawn to the people that take their own path. The outsiders. The people that think differently and see something others cannot. These outsiders commonly emerge as leaders. Welcome to Driving Change, where we go for a ride with business leaders within the tech ecosystem and dig deep into their beliefs, habits, routines, and influences. On this episode, we go for a ride with Ryan Broshar, founder and managing director of Matchstick Ventures, and talk about Techstars Retail, investing, and the emerging tech ecosystem.
Tell me about Matchstick Ventures.
Sure.
And how that came about.
I think Matchstick Ventures basically was the culmination of a lot of different things in my career up to that date. Like, I have a lot of entrepreneurial experience. I started doing some investing and basically decided to switch to the dark side of investing from being an entrepreneur, and got wrapped up in that and learned quite a few things in Boulder, but then brought it back to the Twin Cities. And when I got here, I saw amazing entrepreneurs doing some really, really cool stuff that I felt were not being funded in the way that they would have had they been in other markets. So me,
Matchstick is a fund then for technology companies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So early stage tech VC, based here in Minneapolis.
All the investments in the Twin Cities?
No, they're actually about a third of the investments. We've done 38 investments.
Okay.
About a third of them are in the Twin Cities, but the other 2/3 are really across the country.
Has it been one fund or?
Two.
Okay, it's been two funds.
Yeah, the first fund was called Confluence Capital.
Okay.
And then we rebranded to Matchstick for Fund 2.
Are you guys looking to do another fund or?
I mean, assuming things go well, yeah. Definitely a possibility, but that's, for the market to determine, I guess.
Out in Boulder, that's where you got connected with Techstars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for people that don't know, can you give a kind of a high-level overview on what Techstars is?
Yeah, sure. So Techstars is like a worldwide organization that provides resources and connections for startups. The main tenet of that is an acceleration program. We've got 30 of them around the world.
Okay.
And we recruit companies from all over the world. They all move to one spot, for 3 months, and we pair them up with over 100 different mentors that volunteer their time to help out with the companies and provide feedback and connections and advice, and a lot of the don't make the same stupid mistakes I did mentality that can really help their company during that time. We also make investments in all the companies.
Does Techstars do anything different than kind of your ordinary accelerator?
I think the main differentiator from Techstars' perspective is just the power of the network.
Yep.
So
it is one of the largest ones.
It's one of the largest ones. There's people in almost every country around the world. It also is the controller of Startup Week and Startup Weekend. So every year 1,000 startup weekends occur around the world.
Wow.
And so, being in the Techstars network, you're basically 1 degree away from anybody in the tech sector. One intro away from somebody, and it's just super powerful because people approach it as like a true mentorship-driven accelerator.
Yeah. What's the process putting together a class?
Yeah, it's a grind.
Okay.
It's like I think I was in 15 different cities just in the last couple months.
Oh wow!
Out speaking at events, meeting with startups in office hours across there, and so we literally review thousands of startups before we get them into applications, and then narrowing it down to interviews with the top 75, and then we get down into finally the 10. And that whole process is a matter of just getting a bunch of feedback on the companies, trying to spend as much face time with them as we can, and try and get to know them as human beings and not just applications.
Yep.
So it's a grind, but it's well worth it, in the end.
Once you make the selections, and they have to move, right? Isn't that part
Yeah.
of the part of the program that's
Yeah,
quite challenging?
absolutely. It is, yeah. But luckily, Minneapolis is a good spot to move to. So
Is it? Is it?
I mean, look around. It's great. It's great. It's always like this here, right? No, it was pretty crazy. So we ran our first class last year.
Yep.
And on day one, we did just a quick straw poll on the class. There was about 45 people in the room amongst the 10 companies. We said, how many people have been in Minneapolis before? I think one person raised their hand.
Oh my
had
gosh.
literally
Just once
been in the city. But at the end of the program, 2 of those companies ended up moving to Minneapolis. Like, they moved their entire
Wow. company,
family, lives, employees to Minneapolis 3 months later.
That's remarkable.
And they haven't looked back. They're doing incredible. So it's a good time to get people exposed to what's going on here locally.
Looking at the Twin Cities tech scene, what advantage do you think companies have starting here or being here in tech than other areas?
I mean, some of the sheer results I've seen of companies who have set up shop here, or even our Techstar companies that
Yep.
stayed here, is some of the main feedback that we got was, look, the market that I'm from is a huge market. It would take me, years to build the level and quality of connections that I was able to build in this market in just a few months, right? Because it's a tight-knit community, but it's a very powerful community when you think of like the actual individuals and like the organization that they represent and the quality of people that they get to interact with is just denser.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not volume, it's density. And you're able to tap into that very quickly. Whereas you try to get to that same dense network of stuff in LA, New York City, whatever, like it's almost impossible. But you're not losing on quality. So if you think about like I want to have mentors, I want to have network connections, potential huge large scale enterprise customers. That is just so much easier here. So we've seen people take advantage of that. And I think the talent is there too. Like there's just some really good quality people that they can hire, and they don't have to, fight tooth and nail like they do in other markets to get people. I mean, I think there's a different level of it, but like it's there's still a lot of quality talent.
I think one of the disadvantages in the Twin Cities is the Twin Cities can be kind of isolated to other areas, but with the Techstars program and that network, that kind of solves that problem.
I think it really helped put the Twin Cities on the map, right? Like as far as a legit place for startups to grow and thrive, because once the programs here, we have people flying in from all over the country that are mentors, that are investors, and all that stuff. So when they come into town for a Techstars event, they're also, hey, what else is going on in town? Like, hey, I want introductions to anyone else. Like, I want to use my time. I want to be involved. So we've seen the overlap of people coming in for Techstars and then actually investing in other companies or taking positions in certain companies, and we're just starting to see the trickle through for that. So
that's really interesting.
Trying to get it, not as much as an isolated solo network, but part of being like part of the international network and being a hub, like a main hub on that, I think is more important.
Personally, as an entrepreneur, in the Twin Cities, over the last 20 years, I've always felt like there's a great divide between large corporations and startups, and specifically selling to large corporations. It's really hard for entrepreneurs because big business tends to only trust big business, right? And so that it's really risky for middle management to take a risk on a startup because if their product doesn't work, that could hurt them, right?
Totally,
so that's like so how do you, within that group, like how do you connect those together, and what have you seen?
Well, the more we dug into it with like the local, Fortune 500s or even beyond that, is that there's actual people in those organizations whose job is to interact with startup communities, find emerging technology trends, investments, mergers, acquisitions. Like these people exist. We just don't know who they are. Like or startups, there's not like a phone book that says, "Oh, call this person." But the more we dug into it and figured out who those people were, the more we realized that like we're actually helping them do their job, and that they want to have these interactions. They want to know what's going on from there. So we've been able to make sure that we can help pair them up with local startups who can really help those large scale organizations. The other half of that too is helping large scale organizations or large corporations here, teaching them how to actually work with a startup. It's not like working with one of the big consulting firms or huge technology platforms. There is a give and take in this, right? But the more that they can realize that in the end it's a long game here, and that if these interactions are meaningful at the beginning, can lead to real value for their companies in the long run.
Minnesota has a lot of, I think per capita we have big Fortune companies here, more than many other cities for the size of city that we have. How do you see that helping or not helping kind of the startup community?
I think it's a massive untapped resource on both sides.
Okay.
So the more you interact with large corporations, the more you realize how thirsty they are for innovation, and to recognize trends in the market, et cetera. And most, if not all of the time, that's coming from outside the four walls of their organization.
Yeah.
And a lot of these organizations aren't built to look outside of those four walls, and they need help. And I think that they're just coming to that realization now on there. And from the startup community, that's always been wow, wouldn't it be great if we were able to tap into that, and you start to see that kind of big company startup interaction. And it just hasn't materialized to date. But I think that we're having a massive sea change in that. And once that starts to click and the large corporations have meaningful interactions with the startups, we're starting to see Minneapolis and Twin Cities really on the national map because of the initial traction and kind of international viewpoint of these companies can help the startups think about their company at that sort of scale.
Yes.
And that's a huge difference than being in another market, not being able to interact with these companies until you're already at that scale.
Early stage entrepreneurs that haven't started yet, what do you think holds most of them back?
Fear.
Fear of what?
Failure. For sure. I think there's a fear of if I do this and I fail, then it just goes to the extreme. It's like I'm going to end up on the street, and everyone's going to hate me. My career is going to be over. And there's no way I'm going to be able to get back from that. And this is so not the case. Like I've never seen anyone, give it a real good go at starting a company, starting a startup, trying their best, working their ass off to do that. And if it didn't work, then everyone just throws them to the side. I think it's much more of like wow, congratulations, like you did, that was a really good try. Like we totally understand why the business failed. What are you going to do next? Or if you don't want to do it again, like I don't know many hiring managers, and you would know this more than I would, that don't look at that as like wow, that person has initiative and that's amazing. Like that's a huge differentiator, and I love it. So I think that side of the fear needs to be squashed, and there's real things that you have to consider before starting your company, but like the fear of failure should not be the leading indicator of if you should do something or not.
Every person I talk to is typically working on something, trying to solve a big problem or working on a big opportunity. What's that main thing for you right now?
I think it's trying to get the Twin Cities on the national map from a startup community perspective. It factors into so much of my professional career, but then also just kind of my personal passion and setting up roots here. Like, if we can make any progress towards that, and I think we are over the next few years, I think I'll be a happy man to look back and say maybe add a piece of that to help out.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Hey man,
Nice.
thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's been
for
fun.
taking a ride.
Hey, this is Jeff Martin again. If you go to leadbychange.com, you can see this show and other shows. If you subscribe, you can get early access to new shows and also exclusive content. Thanks for watching.